When a billionaire's card got declined at a gas station, no one knew a little black girl's $15 would spark a war and bring down an empire. Transaction denied. Try another card, the cashier said flatly, her voice carrying the bored tone of someone who'd seen broken men at this counter before. The man in front of her didn't look broken, though. His clothes were plain, but the watch on his wrist could buy a house. He just stood there, frozen by the pump, as whispers started behind him. Alexander Mitchell, 42 years old, once ruled a tech empire worth $3 billion. At least, until 3 weeks ago, when he vanished from the corporate world after uncovering something that shook him to his core. And now, here he was, stranded at a lonely Texas gas station, card declined, 50 strangers watching him like a failed celebrity. Seriously? This guy's driving a Mercedes and can't pay $23 for gas? Someone muttered loudly. A woman laughed under her breath. Probably another fake influencer playing rich for Instagram. Alexander tried another card. Declined. A third. Declined. The chuckles turned into full-blown laughter. He knew why this was happening. Someone had found him. Someone had shut down every account he had. "Sir, I'm gonna need you to move your car," the attendant said, trying not to look sorry for him. And that's when a small voice cut through the heavy silence. "I can pay for him." Every head turned. Standing there was a little black girl, no more than 8 years old, clutching a tiny pink purse. Coins jingled inside as she walked up, braids swinging, determination in her big brown eyes. From the family car behind them, a woman's voice barked, "Grace, get back here right now." But Grace didn't move. She held the purse tight and whispered, almost like a secret, "I have $15.60. It's not enough, but my grandma always said, if someone needs help, you help." Alexander's chest ached. For 3 weeks, he'd been treated like dirt, kicked out of the empire he built, abandoned by the same elites who once worshipped him. And here was this little girl, offering everything she had. Grace's mom finally stepped out of the car, face red with embarrassment. "Sir, I'm so sorry. She's just too kind for her own good." Alexander knelt down so his eyes met Grace's. For the first time in years, his vision blurred with tears. "What's your name?" "Grace," she said softly. He smiled, almost to himself. "Grace, do you know how special that is?" Behind them, people shifted uncomfortably. Some sneered. Some took photos. They had no idea who they were looking at. They didn't know Alexander Mitchell had uncovered secrets so dark they could bring down entire governments. And right here, in this forgotten station, this little girl had just given him something worth more than all the money in the world, a reason to fight. What happened next? That photo of a bankrupt billionaire kneeling in front of a little black girl hit social media before he even drove away. #BillionaireBeggar exploded online. This guy ran a $3 billion company and can't buy gas. Pathetic. Karma. Watching a rich white man saved by a black child? Chef's kiss. The comments burned like acid. But what made Alexander's blood freeze wasn't the memes. It was the text he got at 10:43 p.m. from a number he knew by heart. "Have you seen the news? Guest disappearing didn't work out. Some secrets are too big for one man. Maybe it's time to let this go. J.K. Jonathan Kane, his best friend for 15 years. The man who now ran the company Alexander built. The man who stole everything." Alexander's jaw tightened as memories flashed. Jonathan's smug grin in that Manhattan office 3 weeks ago. "Alex, you don't understand. These government deals are delicate. What you found about the surveillance algorithms? That never leaves this room." Now, Jonathan's latest text sent a chill through Alexander's bones. "By the way, Sunset Motel on Route 65? Cute place. I bet that little girl lives nearby. Would be a shame if something happened to her family, don't you think?" Alexander's stomach knotted. Jonathan wasn't just destroying his reputation. He was threatening Grace, the one soul who'd shown him real kindness. But Jonathan had underestimated him. For 3 weeks, Alexander had been building a digital dead man's switch, a code that would release every secret, every file, every name if anything happened to him. Corrupt politicians, spies, CEOs, 23 powerful people ready to fall. And now, Jonathan had given him something more dangerous than power. Motivation. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about protecting a little girl who represented everything pure in a filthy world. As Alexander stared out the motel window, the small town lights flickering in the distance, he whispered to himself, "Jonathan thinks this is a game of chess. He has no idea what happens when you threaten an innocent child. Because men like Alexander, they're most dangerous when they've lost everything, except the will to protect what truly matters." 3 days after Jonathan's chilling threat, Alexander sat alone in a dimly lit 24-hour diner on the edge of Dallas. It was 2:15 a.m. The only sounds were the low hum of a refrigerator and the faint clink of dishes. A truck driver sipped coffee in the corner while a waitress lazily wiped the counter, chewing gum like life owed her nothing. The woman who walked through that door didn't belong in this world. Samantha Torres, 38 years old, 2-time Pulitzer winner, and a living nightmare for corrupt politicians. Her dark hair was knotted in a messy bun, her worn-out backpack hiding gear worth more than the diner itself. "Alexander Mitchell," she said, sliding into the booth like a ghost from the past. "For a while, I thought you were dead, or hiding in some country without extradition." "I thought so too," Alexander muttered, pushing a black briefcase toward her. "Until I realized some secrets are too big to die with the people who know them." Samantha opened the folder. Her jaw clenched. Contracts, offshore accounts, wire transfers, proof of an empire built on lies. Enough to topple Technocore and half of Capitol Hill with it. "My God," she whispered. "If this is real, Alex, we're talking Fourth Amendment violations, election rigging, blackmail of senators." "It's real," he said coldly, gripping his empty coffee cup. "Every word, every number, every recording. And Jonathan Kane is trying to erase me before I expose it. Now he's threatening an innocent child." As he spoke, Alexander's phone buzzed. A Twitter notification. Another viral meme mocking the billionaire beggar. This time, they'd remixed Grace's tiny voice, "We can pay for him," into a techno beat. The internet laughed while Jonathan turned a little girl's kindness into a national joke. "I need you to lock this down," Alexander said firmly. "Verify every piece, cross-check everything. When this goes public, it has to be bulletproof." Samantha slid the documents back into her bag. "How long do we have?" "Not long," Alexander replied. "Jonathan knows every day I'm breathing is a risk." But he made one mistake. His voice dropped like a blade. He threatened Grace. That same morning, Alexander made his second move. He drove to a small red brick elementary school surrounded by an old playground. Grace's school. He didn't go near the girl. He couldn't risk that. Instead, he asked to see the principal. Dorothy Washington, 55, greeted him in a modest office lined with children's drawings. She recognized him instantly, but showed none of the contempt he'd seen online. "Mr. Mitchell, Grace told me about the gas. They did more than help me," Alexander said softly. "She reminded me who I was before I lost myself in money and power. And now, because of me, she may be in danger." Dorothy froze. "What kind of danger?" "The kind that comes from powerful people who see me as a threat. They could use her as leverage." He leaned forward. "I want security upgrades, cameras, guards, the works. I'll cover every penny. And a $250,000 education fund for every student here." Dorothy stared at him. "Why would you do that?" "Because an 8-year-old girl showed me more humanity in 5 minutes than I've seen in 15 years. And if something happens to her because of me," his voice cracked, "I'll never forgive myself." Meanwhile, 42 floors above Manhattan, Jonathan Kane sipped scotch as the city sparkled beneath him. His lawyers surrounded him, scrolling through social feeds. "The humiliation campaign is working," said David Chun, head of marketing. "Stock is up 3%. Everyone thinks Alex is a paranoid lunatic. No one will believe a word he says." Jonathan smirked. "Perfect. And the security measures?" Marcus Webb, ex-CIA and now Technicorp's head of security, checked his notes. "Full surveillance on him. We know where he sleeps, who he meets, where he goes. If needed, we'll pressure third parties." "Third parties?" Jonathan asked, his tone like ice. "The girl's family." Marcus didn't blink. "Indirect pressure works better than bullets." Jonathan swirled his glass. Children weren't people to him. They were variables. "Leverage." "Do it," he said coldly. "But keep it clean. Nothing that traces back to us." What Jonathan didn't know, Alexander was already inside his system. For 3 days, He'd been planting tracking viruses through old backdoors he built himself. Every email Jonathan sent, every shady transfer, every internal meeting, Alexander was copying it all to a hidden server. That night, Alexander's burner phone buzzed. Samantha's voice came through, sharp and urgent. "Alex, you need to hear this. I intercepted an internal memo. They're planning to go after Grace's family." Alexander's stomach turned to stone. What exactly? No violence, just intimidation. Fake legal trouble, sudden financial problems, harassment. They want to make life hell for her family, then frame you as a manipulator when you step in. Alexander's fists clenched until his knuckles burned. Jonathan wasn't just trying to destroy his name. He was weaponizing a child's kindness. "There's more," Samantha continued. "I traced the accounts funding those memes. It's not just Technocore. For other corporations. 2 media giants." Alexander exhaled slowly. They thought they'd cornered him. They had no idea he had allies, hackers, journalists, engineers who owed him loyalty, people who believed in the same thing he did, truth. Alexander's fingers flew across the keyboard, reviving lines of code he had buried years ago. It was time to wake the network, a silent army he had built in the shadows, and teach Jonathan Kane the one lesson money could never buy: never weaponize the kindness of children. That single mistake would become the costliest decision of Jonathan's life. What Jonathan and his board could never grasp was that some battles go beyond business. They tap into something raw, primal, the instinct to protect innocence. And when you awaken that force in someone who has not only resources, but a secret army of loyal allies, the fight stops being about profit. It becomes a war for something bigger, the line between those who protect and those who destroy. At 9 a.m., the Technocore Industries boardroom buzzed with routine chatter, until every executive's phone lit up at once. Jonathan glanced at his screen and felt the blood drain from his face. Breaking news: former Technocore CEO blows the whistle on mass surveillance. 200 million Americans spied on. The headline wasn't just on the Washington Herald. It had erupted across every major news outlet in the country. CNBC, CNN, The Wall Street Journal, all carrying one story: Technocore's empire of corruption laid bare. "Jonathan, are you seeing this?" Marcus Webb, the ex-CIA head of security, stormed in clutching a laptop. His voice shook. "They have everything. Contracts, offshore transfers, secret recordings, every damn email from the last 3 months." Jonathan scrolled frantically, his hands trembling. Every private conversation, every bribe, every blackmail. And then, the kill shot. An audio clip of his own voice saying, "Would be a shame if something happened to her family, don't you think?" referring to Grace. By noon, #Technocore Files was the #1 trend worldwide. The clip of Jonathan threatening a child went viral, played millions of times, accompanied by hashtags like #ProtectGrace and #CorporateMonsters. And then came Samantha Torres, live on primetime television, holding a thick stack of evidence. "This isn't ordinary corruption," she declared. "We're talking about election tampering, mass surveillance, and corporate extortion on a scale this country has never seen." There was no damage control. Every document was verified, every recording digitally authenticated, every wire transfer traced across international borders. By 3:15 p.m., Technocore stock free fell by 42%. By 4 p.m., FBI raids hit every Technocore office nationwide. By 5 p.m., Jonathan Kane was marched out of the skyscraper he once ruled, his empire crumbling, his name trending for all the wrong reasons. But Alexander wasn't done. That night, during the national evening news, the world saw the face Jonathan tried to destroy: Grace, sitting with her mother, smiling shyly under studio lights. "My daughter proved that kindness knows no class, no color," her mother said. "She helped a stranger because it was right. The fact that powerful men threatened our family for that kindness? That's why the world needs people like Mr. Mitchell." That clip shattered the internet. 68 million views in 24 hours. Meanwhile, Jonathan watched from a dingy apartment in New Jersey, hiding from the press. His phone, silent. His accounts, frozen. His wife, gone. Divorce papers served. And then, at 11:47 p.m., a text flashed across his cracked screen. "Jonathan, I didn't destroy you out of revenge. I did it to protect a child who showed more humanity in 5 minutes than you showed in 15 years. The difference between us? I used power to protect. You used it to threaten. Alexander. Attached was a photo. Grace laughing on the school playground, safe, free, and blissfully unaware that she had ignited one of the biggest corporate takedowns in history. Jonathan stared at the photo and understood. He hadn't lost to Alexander. He had lost to something bigger, something pure. 6 months later, Alexander sat in a small Austin office, not a corner suite. No glass towers, just a view of a bright playground filled with kids. The sign outside read, "The Grace Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting whistleblowers and fighting corporate abuse." On his desk sat a framed photo, Grace, smiling, holding her Young Citizen of the Year award. Meanwhile, 1,000 miles away, Jonathan Kane scrolled freelance job boards from a grimy Detroit apartment. His plea deal? Rejected. His sentence? 15 years in federal prison. On TV, a Netflix trailer flashed. Little heroes, big changes, the true story of Grace. Jonathan muted it, but the image of that girl burned into his mind like a scar. That same day, Alexander attended the opening of a new digital library at Grace's school, funded entirely by his foundation. The girl ran up to him, hugging him tight. "Mr. Alexander," Grace whispered, "our teacher says you helped kids like us all over the country." "No." Alexander smiled, kneeling to her height. "You started all this. I just amplified your kindness." Grace grinned, clutching a small envelope. "I still have that $15.60 in case someone else needs it." Alexander laughed, eyes glistening. "Keep it safe. That $15 changed the world." The foundation processed over 200 corruption cases in its first year, toppling executives, saving billions in stolen funds, and proving one truth Alexander would never forget. The greatest power doesn't come from money. It comes from a pure act of kindness, amplified by someone willing to fight for it. And if you believe in stories where small gestures ignite revolutions, subscribe for more. Because sometimes the greatest heroes are just 8 years old and have $15 in their pocket. A billionaire's card got declined. Would you help like this little black girl? If this story gave you chills, share in comments and subscribe to my channel Black Nation Strength for more powerful stories.